Zlatan Ibrahimovic once said, "I can play in the 11 positions because a good player can play anywhere on the pitch." Which is plainly just absolute nonsense, isn't it? Giorgio Chiellini is a world-class centre-back, but I wouldn't really fancy him as a dainty right-winger. Lorenzo Insigne is dynamite when he cuts in off the left flank onto his stronger right foot, but I wouldn't really want him at centre-back given that he's about the same height as a minion. And Dimitar Berbatov, for all his guile and grace on the ball, would, I suspect, make for a pretty horrific box-to-box midfielder given that he rarely clocks at more distance covered than his team's goalkeepers. You get the idea. Whilst players are expected to be more versatile than ever now, particularly forward players, we cannot escape the fact that certain players play best in certain positions. And almost every one of us will have at least one player at the clubs that we support who we feel are currently being played in the wrong position. At Hull City, for example, Grant McCann recently played Keane Lewis Potter, who is essentially a striker of very slight build, as a left wing-back, as well as persisting with Louis Coyle at right-back when he should clearly be playing a different sport. I jest, of course, they are almost all out of their depth, so it would be wrong to single any one individual out, even though that is exactly what I just did. But in today's video, we're going to take a look at a number of players who are either blatantly being played out of position or who I just think are playing in the wrong position. Players like Paul Pogba, who I actually left out just because I'm so sick of talking about him and I feel like it would be just treading on old ground. But you get the idea. Here are 7 footballers playing in the wrong position. Rodrigo. We start with Rodrigo, and for those of you who just listen to these videos rather than watching the visual feast that I have painstakingly provided you, and yes, I know you're out there, I should probably point out which one, given that there are quite a few. I am referring to Leeds United's club record signing Rodrigo, who joined the team from West Yorkshire following their promotion to the Premier League in the summer of 2020. A lot of people seem to be underwhelmed by Rodrigo's debut campaign at Elland Road, given his status as a £27 million marquee signing, and whilst I don't disagree with that being rather steep for him at the age of 30, it is worth noting that Rodrigo has never been the most prolific. He only scored 7 goals for Valencia the season before he signed for Leeds, so the fact that he only managed to replicate that tally in his first season back in English football should come as little surprise. It seems likely that Rodrigo won't even reach that figure now though, with Marcelo Bielsa playing him really quite deep when Patrick Bamford is fit. When Bamford is out, as has been the case in recent weeks, Rodrigo leads the line for Leeds. But when the England international is available, Rodrigo has been playing essentially in central midfield. More advanced than Calvin Phillips, but often actually breaking ranks and getting forward less often than Mateusz Klich. Rodrigo is quick, athletic, and neat on the ball, and he might be capable of slotting into midfield against lesser teams, but it certainly isn't his best position, and against the better sides, Leeds look horribly exposed when he is in there. That was very evident in Leeds' games against both Manchester United and Liverpool this season, both of which saw the Spaniards substituted at half-time. The reality is that Rodrigo is a forward, who could play as a number 10, but Patrick Bamford has a tight grip on the former when fit, and Bielsa's Leeds can't really accommodate a true number 10, they all have to be functional off the ball in midfield. In the end, we might see Bielsa give up on this Rodrigo in midfield project and play actual midfielders there instead, and just rotate him with Patrick Bamford based on fitness, form, and general rotation. Sergio Dest. Sergio Dest is an unusual footballer, which is apt, I suppose, given that he is currently playing for a very unusual club. Born in the Netherlands but already capped 15 times by the United States, Dest is a right-back by trade, and a very modern one at that. And by that, I mean he is quick, adventurous, and he can cross the ball, but defending appears to be optional depending upon the occasion. Dest came through the youth ranks at Ajax before enjoying an impressive debut campaign, which prompted a potential €26 million move to FC Barcelona, before the club had come to terms with the fact that they had so much debt that they had to turn off the heating, the lights, and lose the greatest footballer of all time for nothing. Dest's form since arriving at the Camp Nou could best be described as mixed. At times, he looks rampant going forward, but roughly 1 in every 3 games seem to range from subpar to utterly disastrous. It probably doesn't help the fact that his position has changed so frequently already in the early parts of this season, deputised as both a right back, left back and left wing back, and also on the right side of a front three. That is where the American played in the Clásico last weekend, missing a big chance for Barcelona with the scores tied at 0-0 in the 25th minute. Dest has been blasted for putting his effort over the bar, including by his own manager, who said, "You simply have to score such a clear opportunity," in his post-match press conference. That is all well and good, but Dest is a 20-year-old playing wildly out of position, and if Barcelona aren't careful, they will kill his confidence and waste the opportunity of having a potentially very good wing-back on their hands for the next decade. Callum HudsonOdoi. Callum HudsonOdoi. I suspect no player has featured as frequently on this channel whilst playing so few minutes of football over the last few years, and that is because I am a big fan of his. Well, that and the fact that he ruptured his Achilles tendon back in 2019 when it looked like he was poised to make a breakthrough. There have been a fair few occasions in which I've thought that perhaps HudsonOdoi would simply have to leave Chelsea to realise his full potential, particularly following the arrival of extensive forward talent such as Hakim Ziyech, Kai Havertz, Timo Werner, and most recently Romelu Lukaku. However, Thomas Tuchel has shown his appreciation for Callum HudsonOdoi during the early parts of this season, but not always in the youngster's preferred position. In a Chelsea team which now has a spine made up of academy graduates, HudsonOdoi is as talented as any of them, but remains a slightly peripheral figure. He has played wide on the right, left, through the middle, and even at wing-back this season, and he's only played 8 games. HudsonOdoi is very two-footed, but it's on the left flank, cutting back inside, onto his slightly stronger right foot, that he is happiest. Yet, that is where he has played least frequently so far this season. Chelsea fans felt that Thomas Tuchel might have made a breakthrough in their 7-0 demolition job of Norwich, in which HudsonOdoi looked a constant menace coming in off that left flank and interchanging with Ben Chilwell. But alas, it is the hope that kills you. Whilst I was producing this video, Chelsea announced their team sheet for their EFL Cup tie against Southampton, with HudsonOdoi back in the right wing-back position. No doubt, he will be happy just to be playing football, but clearly it is not his strongest position, and one suspects there is only so long that he will play there, even in a winning team, before growing a little bit frustrated. Emi Buendia. Another player whose praises I've sung a fair amount of times on this channel, Emi Buendia was absolutely outstanding at Norwich City in the Championship last season. Among the finest players to have played in the second tier of English football during my lifetime, Buendia has always had a certain fiery talent, attitude, and invention, but never before had he been so devastating in the final third. Over the summer, Aston Villa placed a £38 million bet that the Argentine could replicate that form back in the Premier League, with Buendia seemingly the closest thing to a like-for-like replacement for Jack Grealish at Villa Park. That is perhaps an unfair billing for Buendia, but maybe he would come closer to living up to it if he was actually played in his best position. It is no secret that Dean Smith has struggled to accommodate all of his attacking talent this season in a starting 11, and he seems to be determined to try and fit Emi Buendia, Ollie Watkins, and Danny Ings into some kind of attacking trio with Buendia functioning as a number 10. But that isn't where Buendia is best utilised. The 24-year-old is at his best when drifting in off the right flank, not hugging the touchline, just lingering in and around that right-hand channel. That is where he did the vast majority of his damage at Norwich last season, scoring 15 goals and making 16 assists in the league alone. And it is also where he played when he recorded his only goal contribution at Aston Villa. Buendia scored against Brentford whilst playing on the right earlier this season, yet he hasn't been tried out there again either before or since. My suspicion is that eventually he will be, and that is where he will settle. But that will likely mean a system change for Villa, reverting to a shape more similar to the one that they used last season. Lionel Messi. A little-known player who swapped Barcelona for Paris over the summer, you may or may not be aware of Lionel Messi. If you're not, don't worry, I will give you a bit of background on him. Messi started out at Barcelona, playing out wide, where his phenomenal ability with the ball at his feet quickly made him one of the most exciting players in all of world football. When Pep Guardiola got a hold of him, he brought Messi in from the right and played him more centrally. the diminutive Argentine became the focal point of Barcelona's attack and the best footballer in the world, both instigating attacks and finishing them off through his unique skill, balance, and sheer ability and accuracy both on and when playing the ball. Over the years, Messi's position on the pitch changed a little. First off, he began dropping further and further back until he was playing almost in central midfield at times, though his goal contributions remained staggering. As Messi has got older though, he has become increasingly disinterested out of possession, no longer involved at all times, but instead picking and choosing his moments to come alive and turn a game on its head. He did this, oftentimes, in his later years at Barca, whilst playing once again out wide on the right, though really it was in more of a free role. Following his summer move to PSG, however, Mauricio Pochettino appears to believe that we are still in 2009, since, not since then, has Lionel Messi been pushed so wide. Pochettino has Messi playing almost in the stands at the Parc des Princes, thwarting his ability to get in the kind of positions where he can create and score goals with ease. That has been reflected in Messi's lack of Ligue 1 goals, and in truth, it is a situation that doesn't really seem sustainable. Messi will still make things happen playing on the right flank, but as I covered in my recent deep dive into the rather complex situation at PSG, you can't take a player who does so little off the ball, but is the best player in the world on it, and reduce their ability to get on the ball in dangerous positions quite so severely. It is just tactical suicide. And if Pochettino does persist with it, you fear that it might well cost him his job. Frenkie de Jong. Frenkie de Jong is a very good footballer, with an excellent footballing brain, but that has been as much a curse as it has been a blessing for him at Barcelona. I am certainly not someone who is averse to players switching positions, particularly early in their careers. It can often be done very successfully, but it does sometimes strike me as unusual when a club pays an absolute fortune for a player due to their outstanding performances in a very specific role, only to then ask them to do something completely different. That is essentially what Barcelona have done with Frenkie de Jong, who was fantastic following his breakthrough at Ajax, playing as a number 6, picking up the ball from his centre-backs and recycling possession. De Jong was Ajax's first line of attack, but he was methodical and intelligent in how he moved the ball, and he was brilliant at it. Barcelona seem to have come to the conclusion that they can basically just stick the Dutchman wherever they have to plug a gap that has opened up. Which, they can of course, that is their right, but don't then be surprised if he doesn't look world class. Barcelona have the makings of an excellent midfield, with the likes of Gavi, Pedri, De Jong, and the experienced head of Sergio Busquets. But they have to find a way of making it work, and of getting the most expensive of those four playing his best football. That might mean playing Busquets and De Jong almost as a double pivot. But if that's what it takes, then so be it, because right now, it is a mess. De Jong costs €75 million, he is ineffective against top-class opposition when he's too far up the pitch, and talk of a Premier League transfer, following a recent change of agent, is now rife. Oleksandr Zinchenko. This is a bit of a debatable inclusion, given the fact that so far this season, for Manchester City at least, Oleksandr Zinchenko doesn't play anywhere. At the time of this recording, the versatile Ukrainian has played just 146 minutes of football, made up of a full 90 minutes against RB Leipzig in the Champions League and 2 cameo appearances off the bench against Tottenham and Arsenal in the Premier League. Zinchenko's game time has been so drastically reduced this season as a result of, a couple of injuries combined with the fine form of João Cancelo at left-back, meaning that Zinchenko's game time is likely to be limited for the foreseeable future, boosted primarily by fixture congestion and Pep's rotation roulette over the festive period. However, when Zinchenko does play, and historically when he has played for Manchester City, it has predominantly been at left-back. In fact, if you don't watch much international football or know much about him before his move to the Etihad, you could be forgiven for thinking that Zinchenko was a left-back / utility man and had been signed by the citizens to play in that position. The reality is that Zinchenko was among Ukraine's hottest prospects when Manchester City signed him off the back of an impressive loan spell with PSV in the Netherlands, playing in central midfield. Zinchenko's favoured position is either in the centre of midfield or playing as a number 10, but he has played very little football in either position since joining the Citizens in 2016. That is unsurprising, you might say, given the plethora of talent that Pep Guardiola has at his disposal in those areas. But what is surprising, or what I have found surprising at least, has been the ease with which Zinchenko has slotted in at left-back, performing admirably even against some top-class opposition. He may struggle to get a game ahead of Joao Cancelo, but there are few finer deputies at fullback in the division. None of that changes the fact that Zinchenko isn't actually a fullback at all though, and soon to turn 25, one wonders if he might fancy playing some club football in his preferred position at some stage, and proving what he can do there. So that is it for today's video. I won't reel off any honourable mentions on the off chance that this video does so well that you all demand a part 2, besides there really would be too many to mention. Thank you all as ever for watching though, hit the like button if you enjoyed this video, let me know your thoughts down below in the comments, and make sure you are subscribed and have notifications turned on for HITC Sevens. You can also find me on Twitter and on Instagram via the username at HITC Sevens on both, should you wish to do so.